The fires in Maui have shown a stark spotlight on being prepared for disasters, but also on what is needed for bare essentials during a disaster. Here's one story that I found on this subject, direct from Hawaii. Let's go. Okay, this comes to us from KHON Channel 2 News in Honolulu. KHON Channel 2 News in Honolulu. And there's a video here that I'm going to show part of that was aired, presumably, around August 14th, 15th.
In the midst of hurricane season, preparedness is a must.
This is Kilo Hotel 6, Mike.
Michael Miller is part of the volunteer amateur radio operators, also
A Zygu 6100 right there. That's pretty cool.
known as hams. In the event of an emergency with severe infrastructure failure, they could be our last resort to push life-saving information.
That's a 706 Mark II-G. I recognize it because I own two of them.
If we're hit by a hurricane, and that's what this drill is simulating, what's going to happen is the internet will go down on one or more islands, and counties will not be able to communicate. So what we're going to be able to do is set up our radios and our computers to be able to send voice messages.
Miller says there are more than 3,000 people who are FCC licensed to operate high-frequency radios. The hams are planning on doing
More than 3,000 people. I wonder if they're referring to just in Hawaii. That's a very low number for the USA in total. So I assume they just mean in the islands of Hawaii there are 3,000 licensed to operate HF, so that would mean general and above, assuming that that statement is correct.
doing an emergency training exercise next month. The idea is to share information between the islands. Hams will be
He's on a 440 repeater, a 2-meter repeater right there, 146.88. You know, we have our main Aries, Dallas Amateur Radio Club Aries repeater is on 146.88. I think that's a popular frequency.
encouraged to deploy their stations using off-grid power, basically pretending that electricity and cell phone services have gone dark.
Every day at 9 o'clock, noon, and 4 o'clock, there's an inter-island net that connects all the islands together. So if one island was out of power or out of cell service, you could still communicate with the other islands.
K6LT, you're loud and clear. My location is Haiku Valley, Kaneohe.
The Hawaii Department of Health recommends people have at least 14-day supply of food if a hurricane does approach the islands, and families should have an emergency plan and a meetup location if separated. For Miller, operating high-frequency radios has become a hobby, but it's a hobby that could save a life.
So, pretty cool setup he's got there with the... Oh, there's a Biowinnow right there. Watch that. Towards the right of the screen, right behind his Zygu radio.
It's needed most.
There you go. Biowinnow battery, Zygu X6100, and an ICOM 706 Mark II-G, one of my favorite radios that I still own. But this article comes after the Hawaii fires, the fires in Maui. And it is they're talking about doing this exercise. They say next month, so presumably September. I'm recording this video in August, just a week or two after this article was posted. So the article goes on to say, what do we do when communications are down, your cell phone doesn't work, and there's no internet? Now, I had a guy come by the channel. He was a troll because he posted the same message on several videos. My newest technician class that we recorded just last month with the W5HRC Hearst Club. He came by and he said, stop this nonsense, just get a mobile phone. Wow, I guess this guy must have some kind of magical mobile phone on a magical network that always has reception, always has good internet, and never has dropped calls. I'd like to see that. But what do we do when communications are down, your cell phone doesn't work? There's a device that comes into play that lots of people have never heard of, a ham radio. Boom. Ham radio is an increasingly popular tool. That is correct. The numbers of licensed amateur radio operators in the USA and worldwide is growing. An increasingly popular tool that provides access to communications without cell phones or internet. You can use cell phones, internet with a ham radio, but they're not required. Important distinction. The radio utilizes frequencies for phone-like communications. Literally, we call voice communications, single sideband and FM phone transmissions in ham radio. It can also access the internet when no internet is available. Yes, it can. Arden-type mesh networking. You can talk to people near you, around the world, or even in outer space. It has become increasingly popular for ham radio operators to communicate with folks in the International Space Station. I'm going to be doing some videos when I go to Galveston around Labor Day next month with the new R-Finder satellite rotor. Stay tuned. A license is needed to operate recreationally, but the license is often not necessary when dealing with a disaster situation. That needs a little bit more expanding upon. That statement is correct. That statement is correct. In times of emergency, when there is an immediate threat to your life or property or people near you, you do not need a license to operate a ham radio or a CB or a GMRS radio or a commercial band radio or anything, assuming that you have no other means of communication possible. So if your cell phone is down, you don't have a police car nearby to key up on their radio, which I wouldn't suggest doing that anyway, and you don't have any other way to communicate, you can grab a ham radio without a license or GMRS radio without a license and operate it. Yes, you can do that. Here's the thing. Are you going to know how to do that? Have you prepared on programming radios? Do you know, if I were to hand you a radio right now and I were to say to you, program in the 146.88 repeater with a negative offset of 600 kilohertz and a PL tone of 110.9 and monitor where we're going to be talking, would you know how to do that? You don't buy a ham radio and put it in a drawer and wait for an emergency to arise and say, well, I don't need a license, and have no clue how to use it. I often liken this into buying a handgun. You don't go buy a handgun and take it and put it in your nightstand drawer, or hopefully in a lockbox, and then wait for someone to break into your home and hope that you have the skills to take the gun out, load it correctly, and shoot it in the right direction without harming anyone else. You don't do that. You take it to the range. If you're a responsible person, if you're a responsible gun owner, you take it to the range and you practice with it, which is actually quite fun, just like ham radio is fun. So taking it out to the park, activating parks on the air, going out into the field and playing radio, talking on repeaters, joining nets, and programming your radio can be fun, and it prepares you for what might happen one day, but you hope never does. It goes on to say that the license is not difficult to get. There are many online courses that and test prep sites that help you prepare for the exam. Once you have taken it, then your license is valid for 10 years with the need only to renew it. There is no need to take the test again. Very true. That brings us to today's topic of ham radio prep. You can always save a 20% discount at hamradioprep.com with the coupon code of Jason20. There are multiple and numerous ways to study for your ham radio license. Ham Radio Prep is one of the better ways. You can download an app for free on your phone, iOS or Android. You can start studying today. And if you purchase the extended studying guides on Ham Radio Prep, it gives you licensed instructors who are teaching you via video. It gives you access to much more learning tools in the app and on the desktop computer. They have gotten tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I don't remember the current number now anymore because it keeps growing. They have gotten many, many new people licensed in ham radio. You can get technician, general, or extra, and they have other training courses for radios outside of that. Visit Ham Radio Prep today and use the coupon code of Jason20 for a 20% discount on everything they offer. It is important to know that the test is about how to use the radio, what frequencies mean, and how to maximize it and use communications device when all other options have disappeared. When all other options have disappeared. Yes, okay, that is an accurate statement. One of the worst parts of what is happening with the Maui fires is that the fires destroyed communications capabilities across the board. People need medications, they need to locate loved ones, and they need information. This is where local Hawaii ham radio operators come in. KHON2.com was able to catch up with Michael Miller, that's the video we just watched, to talk about the need to grow and develop a larger ham radio community in Hawaii to help mitigate the lack of communications during disasters. So I want to touch on this point right here. Maui fires destroyed communications capabilities across the board. So what people don't realize is that you can't pick up your smartphone and dial another smartphone directly. If my wife is sitting in the house right now, or my neighbor across, or right on the other side of my yard right there, if I dial his phone number, the neighbor or my wife inside the house, this signal goes out of the phone to a tower, to a cell tower in my area, and then back to my wife who's sitting 20 feet from me. I can't dial direct from my phone to her phone without going through some sort of infrastructure, repeater, cell tower, etc. You can do that simplex with the radio, especially an HF radio. HF radio goes direct radio to direct radio and does not require any infrastructure, satellites, repeaters, cell phone networks, cell towers, anything like that. Doesn't require anything like that to work properly. So in the event of a disaster like the fires that destroyed infrastructure, destroyed cell towers, destroyed radio towers, you can talk on ham radio and other radio too. GMRS radio is the same way. CB radio is the same way. You can talk on radios direct to other radio operators around the country, around the world, with no need for infrastructure. It goes on to talk about how to get a ham radio license. It costs $35 to get your license. You will not be alone in the journey. We're talking about Hawaii's Emergency Amateur Radio Club. Hence, the more operators that are out there, the better communication network is. Zombie apocalypse, no problem. Cataclysmic earthquake, not a problem. Devastating fire, no problem. Ham radio operators have the capability of providing communications when there are no other options possible. This is a really good article. I enjoyed reading through this article, and I'm glad I was able to share it with you guys. I didn't want to read through the whole thing. You guys don't want to see me reading an entire article by myself. But I suggest I will share the link to this article. Again, it's at khon2.com. Moral of the story is that ham radio is incredibly useful during disasters and emergency preparedness. You want to have a form of communication if you are putting together a bug out plan, a disaster preparedness plan, an emergency pack. You're going to want to have a way to communicate with the outside world, even if that's just a listening only device, so you can listening to see what's going on in your area or in the affected area. So get your ham radio license today. Check out the link in the description for this article. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have a similar story to this one. Put a comment below, and catch you next time.